Hello, my name is Parker.
And my name is Ned.
And this is The Force Unlimited, yet another Star Wars Unlimited podcast. This is episode number 38. We will find out over the next couple minutes if it is special. Dear listener, we are on borrowed time. We're going to try to blitz through this one and keep it short because we used up some of this episode's time on the last episode. But this one, we've got some things to say, so bear with us. Ned, how are you? How was your week? The pleasantries. People are going to be meeting us in Galactics, and we need to give a little personality.
Oh man, wow, that's hard. Little personality. Dang, shots fired.
How was your week?
Good. My week was lovely.
You're more than math,
lovely
Ned.
weather here. Pardon?
You're more than math.
The math.
You are more than math, Ned. There's more to Ned than math.
Am I more than math? Platonists might disagree, but yeah, no, it was a lovely week. I've been doing a lot of bicycling, which has been fun. I've been trying to get back in the. That's excellent.
Don't acknowledge it, Ned. That's purely for our YouTube listeners. Ned is acknowledging for our dear listeners. I am drinking an Ecliptic Ice Giant cold IPA. It's good. I don't know what a cold IPA is. I don't drink warm IPAs, but I realize that's probably a bad joke and that cold IPAs are brewing something or other, but I don't care. It's fine. It's Ecliptic. They're good.
I think the one thing that is worth talking about is that my 10th wedding anniversary happened. So that was
congrats. I didn't know that, and I saw you this morning. So congrats.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
I'm sad that came up now. I'd talk more about that, but our dear listeners don't need to know that. Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about the Trilogy Format tonight, which tells you a little bit about the match we just played. Ned, tell us about the glorious match we just played.
Parker, you absolutely had it from soup to nuts. So I was the 3 decks that I brought a Rey, not a Rey, but a Sabine ECL kind of standard-ish aggro list. I brought a reasonably spicy Thrawn yellow list, making use of the Legacy run, and then I brought a extremely spicy Trench Brew that I had tested extensively. And apparently not extensively enough, because it got just like I was kind of able to hold my own, and the hope was that by the time we got into the late game, I would be able to stabilize under the like withering hail of me being able to recur my power units and my reinforcement walkers and things, but it just did not pay off.
So I just brought my deck list should not shock our dearest listeners. I brought Rada Vault, Cad Bane, a Rada Vault with no spice from no proxies. Cad Bane. As a reminder, Cad is the set 2 leader who is a 2/8 with Raid 2 when he comes out. He comes out on 6. On his leader side, when you play an Underworld card, he does 1. On his unit side, he deals 2 when you play an Underworld card. He's in villain yellow, which makes sense. I love Cad. Moved him to Lake Vault, which we'll get to, or Lake Country, which we'll get to when we talk about our deck list. But again, just classic Cad, and then a nice little Vader ramp, which I'll get to. But I didn't get to play Rada Vault. You banned Rada, and you were sad that I banned Admiral Thrawn in yellow because I'm opposed to fun. I was banning him because we started late, and I would like to go to bed tonight. And I had zero confidence that list would go fast. Once one with Cad versus Trench, I took it. Bouncing Cad.
I was close to stabilizing, and then you played unit Cad and captured my Vader that I was using to stabilize.
And not giving him back is nice, right? And then I think Vader, I took a pared down list ramp. That's fun. But we'll do that when we talk a little bit about the struggles we had with deck building. We're going to talk about trilogies, but before we get into trilogies, we're going to talk about another kind of trilogy. Shebang! 3 packs, Ned, of Carbonite boosters.
Oh, God, dang it. I guess this is the special edition.
We missed one last.
We're throwing money around.
And so we missed one last. Dear listener, I think at this point, anybody who's been watching knows that I can't actually, display packs to the world. I am not that kind of content creator. I just don't have it in me. So we're going to go a nice, easier format. I'm going to open it on camera sufficiently enough so that you can see Ned's pained face as he suffers through capitalism. Then I'm just going to quickly go through and see if there's. Okay. There's a Grand Admiral Thrawn showcase. So right off the top, by not
Ooh.
doing the full display, right, we bring the good stuff. So this pack just paid for itself. And we've got the Phantom 2 is the Prestige. And is there anything?
What are the? It's the
Phantom 2 is
trick,
the
the
card
prestige, and then what are the three parts of magic trick?
Oh, it's the what is it? I don't know. It's been so long since I saw the movie, and the movie is great.
Yeah.
Hyperspace Devastator. This is shaping up to be a very respectable pack. Yeah, I'll take it. Pack one down. Oh no, sorry, and the Starhawk. So that was a good pack.
Yes.
Not opening it on screen is proving to be. I don't know if that was
Clearly that changed the cards that were present in the pack.
right. Like
Yeah.
I'm not sure if is it like a reverse Murphy's Law where that made the pack good, or is it just or is it because the pack was good? That's when the moment we decided. I don't know, but I'll take it. So Ned, here we go. I'm actually
two.
I think EV positive now on the box.
With that Thrawn showcase.
With the Thrawn showcase.
Yeah.
Nothing of note. We're just looking for legendaries and prestiges, and I'm not going to make you all sit through it. Got the Executor as the prestige. That's a good prestige. It's a gorgeous card. I still have not solved this on the Swooty B front. This one is a pain. Horizontal, non-standard horizontal cards. That is not easy to solve.
Not the best. Yeah.
Not nothing that made me happy. Nothing of note. Gorgeous hyperspaces. Absolutely. I mean, I love the Carbonite packs. I'm not gonna lie. Like the point of this exercise as we go into pack number 3 is that Ned and I don't chase shinies, and Ned is in fact opposed to me spending money like this. But it doesn't change the fact
it's
that,
your money, Parker. You can do what you want. I just think that it's a negative EV play. Yeah.
And yet proven false.
Yes.
I have gambled and won. Another Devastator, so I'll take the Legendary. That's always good. The Silver Angel is my prestige. Gorgeous, fine. You can go onto a website I maintain if you really want to see it. Ooh, an upside down card. That was weird. I don't think I've ever gotten that in a pack before. A card that was upside down. Not like special. It's a normal card. Like
yeah.
It's a misprint. They printed it upside down. So actually, that was a fantastic set of pulls. A couple legendaries, a couple gorgeous prestiges, and a Grand Admiral Thrawn showcase. I feel very good about that. Wow, I don't even know how to respond with like the proper amount of excitement because I've gotten used to the the bit works. The bit works less when there's negative EV, but the bit works so much better when it's a positive EV because now you're angry.
I
and
disagree.
I'm happy.
I feel that the bit works better when there's negative EV because it's an object lesson, right? It's like one of those Victorian novels about the hero who falls into error.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go back to what I said during the first pack that I opened, which is that it doesn't matter whether it's positive or negative EV because it works for me either way. Either way, it's like the positive emotional expected value. All right, that was our Carbonite. So
yes,
we had it the other week, earlier this week while I was on vacation. We got an article from Tyler Parrott on reflections on the first. Reflections on the first 3 sets. And I thought this was meaty. I thought this was good. I briefly want to talk about it. You can just go read it. We'll probably link it in the YouTube. But I mostly just wanted to call out because nothing makes me happier than people like... I hate all positive spin marketing
yes.
in the world we live in where everything was great and everything was a win.
Obviously.
And so Tyler going out and saying these were the things that were successes and these were the things that were not is it's key to my heart. And I think for the most part, I agree with everything he said. I think you were slightly more concurring, Ned.
I just think it's really important whenever you have a science advances by this process of self-reflection, and I've frequently read, and I think that it's accurate, is that the degree to which you audit your own projects is the degree to which you improve and get the results that you're expecting. Like, if you are not accurate about what went right and what went wrong, you will keep making the same mistakes. And I think that's one of the reasons why testing decks and just testing in general in a competitive environment is something that really helps to, iron sharpens iron kind of a situation, because it's very easy to lie to yourself. And I think that Tyler did a really good job of being upfront. Like, I don't necessarily agree that all of the points that I would have made are here, but I think enough of them are here. And he's also dealing with a different audience than I am, right? Like,
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree. I think, so his high notes are that Spark, outside of basically Boba, was a rock solid success. That some leaders, the leader space was kind of all over IG-88 to Boba, and I agree with that. I think the starter experience, I think those were the best, whether be from a competitive play, a thematic play, just whatever, the best starter pair or spotlight pair that we've had. They have not even come close to hitting that again, and I don't even think that's purely a Darth Luke are the duo of the original trilogy. I just think that's like they were actually like both viable, which I don't really feel
they
like...
were both viable, and they felt opposed in a thematic way, where you had Luke like protecting their units and trying to build up this kind of mid-range thing, and then Vader that had the top and the bottom end with the kind of more aggressive slant that I thought they really worked well together.
Yeah, and they haven't gone back there, and which is unfortunate. But yeah, overall, I think he opens by saying that Spark is very close to a masterpiece, and I think that is absolutely accurate. Not only is it very close to a masterpiece, I think the fact that it was the first set, like the bar for the first, you know what I mean? Like I would expect a masterpiece to come later. So measured against other first sets of games, I thought it was truly incredible. He was higher on Shadows than I was.
I think that I think that his notes are that the mechanics were solid, but the execution was lacking, where there was a lot more complexity at common and uncommon. And something that came up here that I think also comes up in the Twilight review is that the card development, like not the design, but the development, meant that you had a lot of the power of the set concentrated into a couple of cards, where you didn't have like the same breadth, right? That you would hope for in a set where not every card is going to be equal, but some cards are going to be better than others, and that's just the way that card design works. Is that they're not all going to be hits, but you want to make sure that there's a fair few, that there's not just one or two kind of headline cards in a set,
right?
Or else,
the
value gets all weird.
Okay, that's fair. I thought like I don't feel like he was really high on Smuggle, and we don't need to belabor it, but I feel like the proof is in the pudding. We were talking about the fact that in set 4, how many Smuggle cards are there, right? Like if the mechanic was stronger, we'd see more. But maybe that might just be a question of the value of the cards, because I'm very high on Smuggle. We just haven't seen the value of it or Bounty. And last but not least, I think I thought his insight into why Twilight maybe didn't land the way they wanted it to was very powerful, because I really appreciated the idea, this kind of holistic viewpoint that like the problem wasn't the mechanics. The problem wasn't the leaders, it was the support that the leaders and the mechanics had, and that no one thing was missing. I also, I was a little sad to see what him talking about, drawing the conclusions they had, and I'm not sad. I don't think they made the wrong choice. I want to make that clear. I'm just sad about the world we live in. about what he talks about with Commander Cody being a unit, and that they should have made Rex Cody, and Quinlan's leader should have been Rex.
Yeah.
And that the fact that we got more Han and Boba and more, or rather more Luke and Vader as pilots coming out of that, like, makes me very sad, because that means we're going to be relegated to, like, out of, you know, the takeaways they have he lists at the end is that the Star Wars IP is this huge playground to play in, but that also means that, like, we're going to be getting Bobas and Hans and Lukes and Vaders set after set after set after set after set, and that is, whoa. Like, hopefully people burn out. Hopefully we get to a place of breath where, like, you know, we're not dealing with that, because there's, like, such a depth of your ability to play, you know, like, oh yeah, like, we're getting to a point where you'll be able to play a Twin Suns game where everybody's playing two leaders, the same leader twice, right? Like, this is my Darth Vader deck versus your Sabine deck versus your Ahsoka deck versus, you know, where we're just playing two, right? So that I don't think they're making the wrong choice. Like, they got to pick the things that, like, make people excited and sell. That's fine. I don't object to that. I object to all the consumers. The entire consumer base is wrong, and just going to call that. Quinlan was the right choice, right? Like, I want Avar Chris is the right choice, right? Like, we want those. I want more of that and less of, you know, got to keep one in rotation. Don't disagree.
Sure.
But, like, how many Boba Fett's do we need in rotation? Like, right? Like,
one more than we have right now, Parker.
Right, yeah, right. Yeah, it's always N+1. So, but again, mostly just wanted to talk about it because it makes me so happy to see that kind of, like, constructive self-reflection. It gives me incredible optimism for the game, and like, Mark Rosewater sets a high bar, and Tyler hasn't written for Roseanne, but otherwise I feel like is stepping up to meet comparing Tyler to Mark Rosewater is maybe unfair, but, you know, comparing Star Wars Unlimited Magic in scope is also unfair, but relative to scale, Tyler's doing a fantastic job, and that just gives me optimism. So yay! But let's talk about the trilogy format. I want to note we were right about everything. So
woo!
This is something that I take pride in. By virtue of cutting, kind of like focusing on weird stuff, I think we were the first ones to talk about this. And this has come up a couple of times. I'm always very happy to know, like, even though I still am really bad at evaluating it, and there have been so many better evaluations of it, I think I'm pretty confident. Prove me wrong, but I'm very confident we were the first people to discuss who's the beatdown in regards to Star Wars Unlimited. We are definitely not the best.
I believe so.
We were a little long-winded and windy, and like a week later, Tower Number 9 actually has a fantastic article on it that I still think holds up to this day. It's rock solid, and it's a much so it's been done better, but we did it first. And in a previous episode, we talked at length about possible weird formats for Star Wars Unlimited, and one of the ones we talked about was Best of 3. And I've done a bunch of Googling. I consume a fair amount of content on my own. From the time period, I was consuming, like, all the content. I am quite confident we were the first to discuss a Best of 3 format as it relates to Star Wars Unlimited. So this is actually our second episode on the trilogy format, even though it was only announced like a week ago. So, yay us.
Yes. No, that was in our sideboarded episode. We were talking about, like, alternatives to sideboarding, and this came up as a way that you can have a competitive format without sideboarding. Yeah.
So for those who've been living under a rock or just prepping their gills off for PQs and for Galactics, Trilogy is a new format. It runs Premier Eternal decks without sideboards, and you run 3 of them, and people get and it's just each person gets to ban 1, and then you can play decks you have not yet won with, best 2 out of 3. So for example, in the format that Ned and I just played the format, he banned Raidavault because why'd you ban Raidavault, Ned, of the 3?
I felt like it's an efficient, well-explored mid-range deck, whereas the other 2 felt a little more experimental, and I was interested in playing some experimental games.
Okay. I assumed you banned it because you knew I had the most lines with that deck.
I mean,
But,
I think that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
Like you've had a lot of practice with that deck, and so you know that deck well.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I banned Thrawn in yellow, Thrawn 4 in yellow, the showcase Thrawn,
Yep.
in large part because I didn't want the game to go long. But like if this were slightly more competitive, right? Like then it comes down to, both what do you know about your opponent and how they run, what decks do you have against, I absolutely love the kind of I know that you know that I know that you know that I know that you know that I know that you know Land War in Asia kind of selection there of like I have brought
Yes.
3. Which one I want to ban is going to be based on which one I think you're going to ban, and the based on which one I think you're going to ban, that's going to leave me with 2 decks. That's going to inform the one that I think want to ban, but then I want to ban a certain one, so that's going to inform. That absolutely my favorite mechanic. I'm so over the moon. I think that's just a wonderful test of skill
I mean,
and meta literacy.
yeah, I think it does a huge number of things. But before we dive like too deep into the ways that I really enjoyed, prepping for and playing this format.
Oh
I
wait,
think it's
pause.
important to talk-
So let me just finish. I got sidetracked. So rules wise, and I'm assuming everybody listening to us has listened to 5 other podcasts on the Trilogy format, but just in case, because I know we have some truly dear listeners, and so then, so we have both each banned a deck. I brought Cad Bane. You brought Trench. I won with Cad Bane.
Yes.
So I could not play Cad Bane again. And because you had banned Rada, I had to play Darth Vader. You had this choice because you did not win with Trench to play Trench again or to bring your Sabine. And you played Trench again, which you could do because you had not won. And that's sideboard. That's the format. And so anyways, Ashley, I'm over the moon with this. And I'll talk more about my excitement. But you have things to say, Ned.
Yeah, well, I'm going to start off by just addressing briefly the core idea of the Trilogy format is that you're bringing 3 decks. These 3 decks cannot contain more than 3 copies of a card between them.
Yes, I left it out, and that is actually clutch.
Yes.
We were kind of talking in our warm-up this morning about Sylvanas Windrunner, that the Hearthstone version of this format, we do not recall...
the Hearthstone. Yes.
We do not... Ned and I have not been... I don't believe you've been super into Hearthstone for a while.
No.
But it was early in our friendship when I played Hearthstone and you watched Brian Kibler play Hearthstone while doing laundry.
I occasionally watch Brian Kibler play Hearthstone.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a good entertainer. So, I don't know. Yeah.
But Sylvanas Windrunner was the card at the time, and we believed you could just slot, since it was a neutral card, it into every single deck that you ran in the Conquest format, which is not true in Star Wars Unlimited, which is a fantastic deck building restriction.
Yes. So, I mean, when you're approaching this format, you have to bring 3 decks. These 3 decks, again, because they cannot contain any shared cards, you obviously can't bring 3 copies of the same leader. But more importantly, in general, from a deck building perspective, it is very hard to bring the same aspect of the same morality, right? I found that it was very difficult to bring like 2 hero aggro decks or 2 villainy yellow decks. And there are exceptions to this. I think that there are some decks that have very disjoint parts to them.
Oh yeah, like Bosk's red villainy package with the bounties. Not that it's super competitive now, but it's not terrible in a new format. Might be great. Is running a very different red villainy package than like say Vader.
Yes. And beyond that, though, there are some colors even where beyond the just aspect and morality, sharing an aspect can be difficult. So it's very difficult to bring 2 blue control decks in general because a lot of the powerful blue cards are either single blue, in which case you're having to partition them between the 2 decks, or if they have a moral valence to them, they need other bits that might not be present. And
it's interesting because I feel like this is I want to take a step back and let's talk about this because I feel like that's a blue-yellow problem and not a green-red problem. Not that there aren't neutral red cards that everybody loves, like Open Fire.
Force Throw.
Not that there aren't green cards that everybody loves, which I think is just
Resupply.
like resupply. I think the resupply is
think
the
it's
neutral
resupply.
card that
Yeah.
everybody's happy to see. But there,
Yeah.
I mean, there's some, yes, but it's not prevalent the way it is in yellow or blue. Yeah, blue's got basically
Yes.
all hero needs all of the single target removal package, and
Yep.
villainy has gotten some of it by way of no glory, empower the dark side, but still needs
Yep.
to run some combination of vanquish, take down rivals, fall, fell the dragon.
Yep. Shatterpoint if you're proxying.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like yeah. There's a lot of this like single target removal that is in blue that you really need in both moralities. And same in yellow,
Yep.
you've got waylay to just start with,
Yep.
a surprise strike and shoot first.
Yeah.
And there's so many like yellow events that are not morality based and that Han one runs and
Yeah.
Quinlan runs, but Django runs and anybody in Cad Bane runs and just it's why do you think that is that blue and yellow have this is a huge problem and like red green do not.
And I think that comes down to the difference about unit-based strategies versus event-based strategies. So for unit-based strategies, we have established that having more types or more aspects associated with you tends to give you more power.
But that's true with events.
And so it is true with events, but it is not as true with events. So there's a wide array of events that do a job that is not replaceable. So I think here about like Fell the Dragon versus Takedown versus Rivals Fall, right? Like these are 3 events. They all do different things. They're covering like different segments of single target removal. They all have the same effect, which is single target removal, but they are fundamentally like covering different parts of the spectrum. And no glory you can think of as being a kind of like middle ground, like it's a vanquish, right?
Right. Well, it's a vanquish, but possibly
it's a strictly better vanquish, but it's fulfilling essentially vanquish's job.
Yes.
If you look at units, though, when you are trying to play a unit, just in general, units are defined not just by their abilities, but also by their stats. And so having better stats for the cost is generally better than like there are very few circumstances in which you need a specific unit to do a specific job. There are exceptions here, but in general, you are trying to find the most efficient unit for a particular slot in your curve and in your deck. And there's not this idea about like you need to fill a specific hole that can only be filled, or there's not like a replacement for that. If I may be kind of talking around it a little bit, but if you compare like if you look at the current if we go back to Legends of the Force, the cycle of 2/4s and 2/5s that are morality aspected, those are uniquely well statted for the cost, right?
well, but that only because they're new, right?
Sure.
Like I don't are they
But
or they
battle.
like
But okay, so let's look at Battlefield Marine, right? Like if you could, Battlefield Marine is not doing a specific job that is only solvable by Battlefield Marine. Battlefield Marine is just what is the absolute best stats that I can get from the cost in this set of aspects.
Sure.
And similarly in Red, you see a lot of what is the most efficient amount of damage that I can apply from my units for a cost in Red. You are not looking in general to fill like a specific hole in the same way.
I see what you're saying. So it's just
yeah.
So essentially, you're saying units on a certain level is just kind of good stuff, like because you're going to be playing so many units, you're looking for a wide variety. Whereas with like
Yes.
removal, which tends to be in both blue and yellow, like either temporary or permanent. Okay, yeah, I'll buy that. Okay, so that for me,
And that might change with time. That might change as the card pool expands. But I think that it's likely to be a feature is that creatures units are questions and events tend to be answers.
I
And
don't think
there
it's I don't think it's going to change.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. It's because we've seen
Yeah.
5 sets. So
Yeah.
like it might change in eternal formats like Trilogy or just like Eternal. But it's
Yeah.
not going to change in Premiere.
Yes.
Because at this point, like we have seen, like the single target removal with Rider space
Yes.
has been pretty limited. We have seen plenty of vanilla unit and then 2 aspect is that unit but better.
Yeah.
We've seen that up the wazoo in every color. But like if you look at like
Right.
all of the blue neutral units, we have not seen a plethora of those same units as villainy and heroism doing the
Yep.
thing, but vanquish, but also give your a friendly unit a shield or whatever. I don't know if that's
Right.
like we haven't seen that. And so we only have one more set before all half those cards rotate out, and it's we'll see how that goes. I mean that informed my deck list choices.
Yes.
I went with CAD in Lake Country so I could just be like unstopped yellow. This is a deck that takes the good yellow stuff. I get what yellow
Yep.
stuff I want, and I'm not even. I don't tend to play yellow, so Cad Bane is all of my yellow. I'm out. I'm done.
Yep.
And then I ran a red blue red green and a blue green because green is a stock to the gills in morality. You
Yep.
look at like it was resupply. Resupply is the only card that Raid a Vault and like a Vader ramp. And admittedly, the actual it's fascinating that the rise of Data Vault, which is a separate topic and we've addressed before, the rise of the good stuff being worth more hit points. The variable number of hit points on bases, I think, is going to end up being a thing that really like history will show is a huge thing for Star Wars Unlimited because like there's so much like conventional wisdom of you want the minimum number of cards, and that is true for a given number, but like turns out more hit points is actually worth something, blah blah blah. This has been covered, but so like it's fascinating how many like green decks are like rather than take a 30 HP base are like 33 3 extra hit points for 10 more good cards, which I will find in a green deck. So pairing Vader down from a Vader Data Vault to just regular Vader command, that was the hard part. But once you're down there's no overlap between in green, and then you just get unmitigated colors, which I found like I think that's half the game. I think if you're really agonizing over which deck gets the cards, you've already like screwed up.
You have made an error.
You've made an error.
You have. So my deck building journey is kind of similar. So I started off wanting to run the Thrawn yellow because I really like Legacy Run. I was fooling around to see if I could get like GI to work in this format, and I did a lot of testing. It didn't quite get there. There's just too much ping. The units have gotten too beefy. Your ability to like come out of nowhere, particularly with the prevalence of Data Vault, to just like come out of nowhere and take a game is not very good. So I kind of kept Thrawn as my initial. So my first plan was to use Thrawn to use some kind of a heroism yellow-red aggressive deck. And then for my third deck, I was going to use
Thrawn. You mean Sabine?
No. I kept Thrawn, so that's blue yellow. And then
only.
I was going to add to it a heroism yellow red deck.
Okay.
As deck number 2, and then deck number 3, I did a lot of testing with like a double green Unity of Command list. I did some testing with like a Revan single green deck, and those were fine, but I felt like they were really inconsistent, and I was sort of fooling around, and I eventually stumbled on just looking through the new cards, Psychometry, and I thought, oh boy, I bet I can get the old dream of like an Dr. Aphra or Admiral Trench going.
Did you have in that trench deck any cycling?
Just Trench itself.
No, sorry, Trench is drawing. I meant like getting cards back into your deck. You were down to like 17,
No.
16 in the main deck, and
yeah. No, I didn't have any recycling cards. That wasn't the plan.
I was running Force Choke in game 2, and seriously like thinking about it. Like I didn't need it, but I was very close to just being like, yeah, this you drawing a card is just going to keep getting you closer and closer to the
death.
end.
Yeah.
So okay, I was just curious.
Yeah. And the idea was that Data Vault was going to mitigate that. But yeah, so I settled on Trench. It seemed fun. I tested with Aphra. I tested with Trench. Trench seemed more reliable. It wasn't hyper reliable, but it was fun. And then I needed some kind of an aggro deck. And so looking back, the Heroism, yellow, red, I was looking at like a Han 1 kind of a list, and I was just kind of cold to it. And eventually I said, you know what, Sabine's fine. Just throw a couple new cards in and call it good.
I went into deck building while I was on vacation, thinking about, okay, so we've got to come up with, I've got to figure out like what decks are going to be able to survive the chop, and I suspect that given that I suspect that in theory you could use 6 aspects, technically more, but like 6 non-morality aspects across 3 decks. And there are only 4 non-morality aspects, so you're going to have some overlap.
Yes.
Obviously it's possible to run like Rex in green, double yellow CAD, and then red blue or something, and not have that problem.
Yeah.
But and that's a choice, right? But again, you're also trying to build good decks.
Yes.
But I was not as hard as I expected it to be. It's I think really about picking where your overlap is and just making sure you have as little as possible, like kind of like from a structural standpoint, from a strategy standpoint, so that the moment you're deck building, it's like, oh yeah, these yes, I have the same cards in my sideboard, but there's no sideboard, so gone, done. Like the main core question the deck is asking is completely different, and yeah, if you're like hemming and hawing over like an overlap of like 8 cards or something, you screwed up. Like, don't do that.
And I think to that point though, one of the things that is very interesting about this format is that it does allow decks that have a better game 1 but really fall off against counterplay to do well.
Yeah.
So if you're playing like a really rogue deck, because there is no sideboard, if your opponent just isn't prepared for that angle of attack, then I think you can end up doing very well because your opponent can't adjust their plans, and so you need to make sure.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting point because like
cover. Yeah,
it's not even. I mean, obviously there's no sideboard in game 1, so you win game 1.
Right.
But even if they win game 1, it's not like they can do anything about it. They have to pick another deck that you can then kind of come out of left field to tackle, and you move on to game 3.
Yeah, so like if you're running, I'm thinking here about like the Rex Unity of Command list, right? Like that's a list that folds really, really hard to discard. If your opponent can inflict meaningful amounts of discard to you, it's really bad. Same thing with like sweepers. If they're running, not that they would, but if they were running like Blood Sport or Bombing Run or whatever,
or just Super Laser Blast,
you just lose. Yeah, you win before Super Laser Blast happens.
That's right.
Yeah. You win or you lose before Super Laser Blast happens.
Yeah. Fair.
But if you're playing that in a traditional format, you can probably win game 1 off of surprise, but then you're gonna struggle with games 2 and 3, and the same thing for other kinds of rogue decks. And so having a rogue deck in your arsenal of 3 can be very interesting. It can yield a lot better results than it would in an environment where there's sideboarding. But it also means that you either want to do one of 2 things. You want to have a wide swath of strategies that you're employing so that you're able to kind of cover all your bases. So even if your opponent bans one of your decks, you still have a good shot at being able to play against, have games against whatever they're bringing. Or if you're feeling really aggressive, you can go for 3 variants on a similar strategy, like 3 aggressive decks and different colors. And if your opponent is only playing one deck that answers aggressive decks, you may end up in a situation where, okay, well, they won with their anti-aggressive deck, but now you're playing against 2 like slower mid-range or controlling decks, and you just, or for the other game, you're playing against like a slower mid-range or controlling deck, and if it doesn't have any game against an aggro deck, you can just get both of your aggro decks across the finish line.
I'm fascinated by the kind of knock-on effects that this is going to have for the meta, in that, or for its own meta, but in that if you take a list, a trilogy of lists to an event or locals, and you find that one of the decks doesn't work, like it's not as big a surprise as you thought it was, or it was really more reliant on its sideboard than you thought it was, or whatever reason, it's not coming together. You can't just swap out that one deck.
No.
That there's going to be this like kind of domino effect of, well, if I take out that deck, I've already kind of there's so much space in your collection for these 3 decks, and the space is taken up by 2 decks, and so there aren't going to necessarily be a lot of the remaining space that you can use.
The space of open decks, like if there's not a deck in that space, then you need to reconfigure your other 2 decks so that you're hunting in a different area.
Right, and I think that's fascinating. It just leads to so much more deck building, because right now you pick like your one good deck, you're grinding it at locals. You're maybe playing a lot, but even if you're trying to be like somewhat kind of competitive, because who doesn't like winning? You've got your one deck, and you're tinkering with it against the meta. You're tinkering with it against the local scene of, I know so-and-so is coming with whatever, or this is rising, or woo just put out a video on X and everybody's going to be bringing that, or whatever. Whatever's happening, that's going to be a thing. But now you aren't just tinkering with like 3 or 4 cards. You're going to be constantly building new decks. I'm going to be talking to my local stores. I hope this becomes a recurring local format. I am more excited for this about Premier.
Assuming that you have enough of a card pool to support it, it's really great for people that like deck building. And I think that's a really attractive quality in a format for people that enjoy deck building. I will say that the downsides of the format are that you're having to bring essentially 3 times as many cards. Ned,
I think you are going to be taking Galactics seriously.
Yes, I have promised.
In a way that I am not. I not that I'm not taking it seriously. I just know what my odds are and what my chances are. And I'm going for side events. I am going to be taking the sectors that it starts on day 2 seriously, because all the good players will be gone, and I figure that's my best shot at doing okay. I'm going to try to pack for everything, and how much? Because at this point, you and I need Premier decks. We need Twin Suns decks, because we got to go play with other people and have fun with other human beings. Ned, we need that. Now this goes from 2 decks to 5 decks. In theory, our Premier decks will function if we can build around them for collection. That is a lot of deck to pack on a plane. I have been enjoying the rise in content that you and I will not be doing about how to prepare for Galactics, what to pack. I have absolutely no idea what to bring that isn't my whole collection. But I'm absolutely hoping there are trilogy events at Galactics. That will be priority number 1 for me. I think that's going to be, a blast. God, I think that moment where you and I were picking which deck to ban is the like that, for that second where we were. That's the most fun I've had in SWU in months. The format. This is my this is my format of choice. I will be pursuing locals based on, forget Twin Suns, which is great. Forget Premier, which is great. Forget Draft, which I genuinely enjoy. This is my format, so I'm here for it. Ned, we said we were going to start looking for an off-ramp after 40 minutes
Yes.
because we borrowed episode time last week. So we are going to get in, we're going to get out. It is 45 minutes. We can get in.
I think we're good.
Have we said what needs to be said about trilogy decks? Come play us at Galactics. Ned and I will both be there. We'll probably get another episode out right before Galactics. I will be bringing trilogy decks, so come play trilogy with me. Ned, do you have any final thoughts about this episode number 38, recording on June 29th?
I had a real blast building trilogy decks, and assuming that I can get cards together before Galactics, I will be trying to bring a set of trilogy decks of my own.
My final thought is positive EV in Carbonite packs. You should buy them because they are a powerful and strong investment in money with a great return on the money and value that you spent. That is an episode. Folks, dear listener, we will see you in a couple weeks.